Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to Synchronicity Web TV. I am your host, Nadiya Shah, and this is your moment of synchronicity. Well, today I'm so excited to celebrate with you, my friend ADAMA SESAY. Now, ADAMA is somebody that I have just loved watching. She's grown. She has always been in her power, but to just see more and more people recognizing it has just been so incredible. Now, ADAMA is the goddess behind Lilith Astrology, and she loves talking about Black Moon Lilith, and she is coming to the November speaker series of Synchronicity University. And you can see here, there are lots of incredible teachers who are going to be there. ADAMA is going to be teaching a definitive workshop, giving you the essentials of Black Moon Lilith in your chart. And you're about to see that she is the perfect person to do this. Now, if you sign up before the end of October, which is very soon, you can choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class to learn from ADAMA and others. ADAMA, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Nadiya. I'm so honored to be back at Synchronicity University.
Oh, I love having you. I know that I do ask you from time to time. I feel like I bug you sometimes because I just think you're so good. And so I love when you come because students love you and you just are in your power in a way that's inspiring because of you, but it's also inspiring because of what you teach as well. And so for this, you're going to be teaching about Black Moon Lilith. I have a special affinity for Black Moon Lilith. So let's talk about Black Moon Lilith in astrology. How do you understand her symbolism?
So let's go back to the mythology, because I think that's something that's the core of our practice. And in Western astrology is the archetypes that the planets and astrological points are based on. And when we think back to Lilith's myth, she is the demonized, rebellious, female warrior goddess archetype. And there's a lot of mystery shrouding her myth. And there's been a lot of suppression of it. So should I give a little brief synopsis of the myth, of the mythology for anyone who doesn't know? Please I'm sure, I mean, you have such amazing astrologers and astrology buffs that take your courses, so I'm sure you all know the mythology. But for anyone that does not know, so Lilith actually has Mesopotamian origins and basically started out in that culture as more of a female demon deity. And there was a lot of fear surrounding the Lilith. People thought that she was like a male seductress, demon, killed babies. It wasn't a very positive light that her archetype was placed in. And then it evolved to the to ancient Kabbalistic and Hebrew texts like the Talmud, and the story of the first man and woman, which was Adam and Lilith. And this was about their turbulent relationship and the power struggles that went on. And so basically, Lilith and Adam did not see eye to eye. Adam believed that he was above Lilith because he was a man, and she rebelled, and in that act of rebellion was cursed. She was cursed to experience 100 of her children dying per day for basically denying and rebelling against God and her husband. So basically, Lilith has been held up as a feminist archetype, but then also an archetype of shadow and the dark feminine. So this is the repressed shadow self of the goddess. And I'm a Scorpio, so this interests me a lot. And I have Black Moon Lilith in my first house in Leo. So it really rang true for me as an astrologer and why I've made it so much of my work. And I believe that it can be extremely healing, especially to marginalized communities and people who have dealt with disempowerment in their life. I think across the world, everyone has been feeling some sense of disempowerment, maybe powerlessness with every event that's been going on. I think Black Moon Lilith can really be a place of healing, even though it was a story of destruction and rage and just feminine chaos. Within that, there is a way to navigate similar situations in your own life. So fast forward from or I should say, let's rewind back from the archetype. But Black Moon Lilith in astrology is how this shows up in your chart, like with other of the deities that we use in mythical archetypes. So it's not a planet. So that's another thing as well. There is an asteroid Lilith, and then there is the Dark Moon Lilith. I'll mention them in the workshop, but my analysis is going to be purely on Black Moon Lilith. But Black Moon Lilith is it's the furthest point in space of the moon's orbit. So it's the lunar apogee. So it's a calculation more so even than a point, but it is I call it the wild child of the moon. I feel like it's a great way to characterize it because it's the anti-mother. And I think a lot of Lilith's archetype with the children dying, a lot of that was consistent across the different variations of her story. Not to be morbid or anything. I know we're heading into Scorpio season quickly. But this is a big part of Lilith's energies, the death and rebirth. So I'm going to go over all of this in the workshop, the opportunities for healing with Black Moon Lilith, and we're going to go through Black Moon Lilith, the lunar apogee, through the signs, and discuss what it means and give some background into how you can use it in your own life. Like I've definitely seen across the board in my clients and people that have come to me, just a change in them understanding and knowing this part of themselves that they may have repressed or not shown a light on before.
That's exciting. And I love Lilith and how you describe that sense of wherever it is, and really everywhere in the world, there is either a phase in life or a time or, a context where people have felt powerless. And it is this Lilith archetype that helps so many people, especially the sacred feminine within, which is something that a lot of women seek out to connect with, but it really helps people to understand their own power, or to at least be in their own power. And that is such a meaningful state to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you can even see it right now with Black Moon Lilith in Cancer, the mean Black Moon Lilith. So this is the average of Black Moon Lilith's oscillations. And it stays in a sign for 9 months, and it actually takes 9 years to go through through the entire zodiac. And right now we were in Black Moon Lilith in Cancer, and right now you can really see let's just even look at world events just from just a neutral standpoint, what's going on in Iran. There is a lot in terms of the patriarchy and women and women's rights and oppression. And even in the United States right now, we are going through a lot of upheaval with that as well. So we can start to see these themes and these topics play out where Black Moon Lilith is transiting as well, if we take a look at the mean. So I also look at not only with it in the birth chart, but Black Moon Lilith definitely can bring up some of these themes in the world, because I think this is an unresolved wound within the collective. I think since the feminist movement in the 60s, especially, we've had a lot of change. But before that, women in America couldn't have bank accounts. Like, I don't know for the rest of the world. I can't speak to that historically right now, but that's a fact. So this is new.
Not long ago. Yeah. Really not long ago. Like, I think it changed in the 70s or late 70s where women were able to have their own bank account. So just imagine that you couldn't have a credit card as a woman until like the later 80s. I mean, this is how slowly things have changed. Yeah.
Yeah. I just got some chills because I'm like, I can't even imagine that. Like, not being able to, have my own bank account, but this is the truth. And I think that one thing I've noticed in my practice is it's extremely diverse. Like, I have a lot of male clients that want to understand this also about themselves, because there was also a man in the equation with the mythology. We had Adam and that dynamic. So I've seen Black Moon Lilith heal some of my clients, and I was able to have those conversations about their marriage or their relationship with women and how that affects it, or the things that they should kind of look at to improve their relationships with women. So Black Moon Lilith can also be really helpful for everyone, regardless if you are a woman. But if you are a woman, it's really an important part of yourself to understand because of just the difficulty we've had, in modern history.
It's interesting you mentioned Lilith in Black Moon Lilith in Cancer and how these different upheavals are happening. And I was thinking about how in Cancer, Cancer is an energy of the mom on the one hand. So that's, connected to reproduction, but it's also the energy of country and tradition and patriotism and of the ancestors and how they did things. And so to rebel against that, or to redefine what that is, I think is part of the energy that we're experiencing right now as well. I was also reminded as you were talking that, I share sometimes that my parents are feminists, and they really raised me with this sense of how important it was for, like, on the one hand, for me as a woman to self-actualize. That was a big deal for them to do something meaningful in the world. But there was also this other message I got constantly, which was, as a woman, it is so important for me to have a career, to have my own money. Because a message I got growing up was that if you're going to be with somebody, you should be with them because you want to, not because you have to. So they understood how economic empowerment was so important to women's equality as well. And so it's so interesting how different generations may understand or tap into that Black Moon Lilith archetype differently, right? Like, of course, what feminism means, it's something different to different people. But it's interesting how, to my parents, a lot of that was connected to the economic empowerment that that comes with feminism. And so I was reminded of that as you were talking about, and as we were just talking about, not being able to have a bank account, not being able to have a credit card, like these things that ultimately are so infantilizing, only changed very recently. Like within our lifetimes, for many of us out there, within our lifetimes, this has been changing.
Absolutely. And even if we just look across the board in the world in terms of just the rights of everyone as human beings, there's still starvation and famine and just difficult situations happening. And so we are still in a world that it's like, we even just think back to when we had the Saturn-Pluto conjunction with the nodes, and the North Node was in Cancer. This is still continuing that transition into a more caring world. I mean, I hope so. Into a world that is based on, I don't even want to say matriarchal values, but is based on more about security, comfort, protection, the common people, like your everyday person that relies on the government for help. I think that we are transitioning to something a little bit closer to that, because we definitely have not been in that. And I think the control structures have really been difficult for a lot of us. I mean, we had the Great Resignation, for instance, during 2020, after that conjunction of people just being like, I want to do what feels right to me. And I want to empower myself and start my own business or do my own thing and break away from this control. And it was just so Lilith that this whole couple of years that we've been experiencing Black Moon Lilith in Cancer. And we've been also experiencing Black Moon Lilith in Gemini, which is also rebelling with your voice and with your truth.
Wow. Black Moon Lilith in Gemini, rebelling with your voice. How powerful is that? You know, I was just thinking about, as you were sharing, this idea of like greater balance is part of it as well, because we've gone so far with a certain like masculine archetype. And it's almost like now people are wanting greater balance. They're asking for us to look at the range of expression and the ways in which we own our power. And the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine is in all of us, regardless of our gender identity. And so to have the freedom to be able to acknowledge that is wonderful. And I also want to say that there are so many things in the world that can be better, that it can feel overwhelming to become aware. At the same time, it's important to consider that we now live in times where more people on the planet live in peace and prosperity and with greater equality than at any other time in human history. So I do think we're going in the right direction, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't also seek to bring healing and compassion and sensitivity where it is that things could be better or more equal, or, you know, have a greater sense of well-being for as many people as possible. And so I love that you're tapping into that and you're talking about that as well. So let me ask you about Lilith in the astrology chart. What can people, like, okay, let's say somebody doesn't really know Black Moon Lilith and they see the symbol in their chart. What can you tell us about the astrological Black Moon Lilith?
So if you see it in your chart, you want to pay attention to what house it's in, what sign it's in first. So that will tell you where in your life, so what house that this archetypal energy is going to manifest for you, and then looking at the sign to see how it's going to manifest. So that's the first step, I would say, when you see it. And then taking a look at if Black Moon Lilith is close by to an important planet like the sun or the moon. I have the moon, for instance, as well. So whenever you have it by a luminary, this is my study and what I've seen, like, it just really amplifies the Lilith energy in the person. And you can go through a lot of those themes even more intensely than most people. So it's important to look for that, or if it's aspecting. So if you see it's forming a trine or an opposition or a square with another planet as well, that can tell you a little bit more about how Black Moon Lilith's energy is going to manifest. And sometimes too, it can manifest in powerful ways. Sometimes it can manifest in destructive ways. It really depends on the aspects. It depends on how it is in the chart. So like Pluto, I mean, I'm best friends with Pluto personally, so Pluto doesn't scare me. I have it by my son. But if you see Black Moon Lilith, don't get scared, because it's really all in how you work with it. And I'm actually creating my book right now, in which I talk about a lot of this in depth. And one of the parts that I was creating, I wrote saying, like, I wish when I was younger, I had this book as someone who is very prominent in my personality, because it can be a tough energy to deal with if you don't know how to channel it in the right ways. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, look how strong your chart is. Wow, Pluto, Sun, Moon, Lilith. Wow, no wonder you're like ready to dive into that mystery and own this energy so powerfully.
I'm obsessed.
For sure. I love it. I love it. I mean, I have a grand trine, a Sun, Pluto and Mars grand trine and air in my chart. And so that can give me a lot of that, you know, very focused kind of energy. You have that like defining you in so many ways. So that's really powerful as well. So let me ask you, I'm going to be completely selfish here for a moment before we start talking about other people. My Lilith is, I'll tell you my Black Moon Lilith. It is in my 10th house, in Aries, conjunct Athena. Ooh. Go for it. What do you think? I know. Wow. I love it.
Wow.
I think that's so, it's exactly, yeah, it's so, the more I learn about Black Moon Lilith, the more I see how much she has shown up again and again in my life. And I mean, I just think about the message I got ever since I was a kid, like how important it is for a woman, like if she has her career, she has her power. Yeah, like that was the thing. Do something in the world. Yeah, there was always this change the world for women. I remember my mom really saying that a lot when I was growing up. And so it's so interesting, isn't it? How we end up living these myths.
Yeah, that's it exactly. You have it in the area of career. I consider the midheaven, the mother, the 10th house. Some people a father, however you want to spin it, but still the parents. And yeah, they taught you to basically be Lilith. And I think you're also, you're a leader in the community, you're a leader in what you do. And, you're also creating, and like, I know Pallas Athena, it's a lot to do with creativity, crafting, just basically like doing things for the betterment of women. So she's a warrior goddess, right? So you've got both. Wow.
Yeah. And like that whole independent spirit of both of them magnified in Aries. Like I remember as of a few months ago, it was really this year that people started calling me, and this is other people who started saying it, but I loved it when I heard it. People started calling me a powerhouse. So I heard this used to describe me at the recent ESAR conference, and people I've been interviewing over the course of this year, they themselves have spontaneously used this word. And I've been like, wow, I like that. I like that I'm in a place now in my career and in my life where I can own that energy of these two warrior goddesses in their own different ways. They're warriors, that I have owned that and been able to cultivate that. But I know it's like it's just the beginning. There's so much more yet to do in this lifetime. So I'm looking forward to seeing how those energies continue to manifest. Okay, so let me ask you this. For those people watching, maybe very quickly, how do you feel about maybe going through, let's say, house placement of Lilith? Maybe very quickly we can go through the 12 houses so that people right away can take this understanding and apply it to their charts very immediately. So wonderful. Let's start there. Let's do Black Moon Lilith in the first house. Can you give us one or two sentences as to what people can expect with that?
So the first house is your personality. It's your mask and how you show up. So when you show up as Lilith in the room. So and I'll speak to mine because this is me. From an early age, it was just very like you had a lot of opinions, you had a lot to say, and it can rub people the wrong way. And before you learn to channel it, it depends on where your Lilith, what sign it's in, of course. But before you learn to channel it, you can really go through some tough times with it and not understanding how to channel your own power. There can be things like bullying going on. There can be, it really depends on where Black Moon Lilith is. But basically these people are changed. They can change society if they channel their Lilith energy in the right way. And then it's also alchemizing the opinions of other people is a big one because you can go through power struggles, difficulty that way. So
as part of defining yourself and being more in your Lilith power. And so what about Lilith in the second house?
Oh, so a famous Black Moon Lilith in the first is Marilyn Monroe. So I'll give some, the ones I can remember, I'll give some examples.
Yeah, for sure. And I know Megan Thee Stallion, I remember you sharing that on your Instagram. And so to me, she is so Black Moon Lilith as well in terms of her ownership of her expression, right? And just being in that power. So it's interesting that Marilyn Monroe as well has that energy. So how about the second house?
So I can't think of any celeb examples for the second house, but actually I think don't anyone get mad at me if I'm wrong. You can Google it after. But Shakira, I think, has Black Moon Lilith and Taurus in the second. And I looked this up because she went through some issues with tax evasion earlier this year, which I think is really interesting. It speaks to, it's like literally Taurus in the second house. But this can be someone that deals with power struggles around money and their finances and their worth. There can be things like not feeling like you're getting paid enough, or if you grew up in a family that either had a lot of money and your worth was put into your material worth and how much you can make. So these people can feel like a sense of lack, basically a lot, which can lead to just challenges around money.
And in the third house?
So the third house we have, this is communication, of course, and this is how you speak, how you articulate yourself. I know off the top of my head, a Black Moon Lilith in Gemini, which isn't the third house. I know that for all the astrology experts out there, but I'm just going to say it because it's a good example, but Aretha Franklin is one. And these are people who have a powerful but polarizing voice. And maybe what Aretha Franklin went through when she was young was just some childhood trauma that suppressed her voice. And then, like, of course, we all know her as the most powerful voice on the planet that existed in modern history. So themes like that, and that's an extreme version of it, but themes around communication and your voice. You could be a powerful writer and really change and transform the world with your writing. Or you can fall into the shadow of not feeling like you can speak your truth.
And in the fourth house?
So this one is home and family. This is like your emotional foundation. And so, of course, this can be really tough because this is really like, this is like your root. And this is like the foundation of your being. And a lot of the time, our family can really shape our reality. So the traumas that can happen when you have Black Moon Lilith in that area of your chart can be challenging to move through as you get older. But this is having to do with lineage, the family home tradition, and rebelling against that.
Yeah. It's not an easy path to do that, but, bless those who do. They move the world forward. Black Moon Lilith in the fifth.
So this is creativity and self-expression. And so these people really challenge the status quo when it comes to those things. I'll give, Marilyn Monroe was a Black Moon Lilith in Leo. Again, I know it's not the fifth house, but similar energy in that it's really about, these are people who are breaking boundaries with their creativity. Or they could feel like they had to grow up fast. They were cut off from fun and they had to become adults early in childhood. And that's kind of like a life healing and a life journey is to find that inner child again.
And in the sixth house.
So the sixth house. So I've seen this manifest, and I actually remember a specific client. This manifested in his daily work life. And this is the sixth house. And basically, whenever he would have women bosses, there was always like a power struggle and he would get fired. Like it just wouldn't get along. It just never worked. And of course, I see Black Moon Lilith, and I want to recall it's in Scorpio in his sixth house. And I was like, oh my, and because he was having issues at work. And so of course I look there first when I'm looking at the natal chart. So that can manifest. Sometimes there may be power struggles with people if you hire them on your team, or you could also take a radical approach to health. Another part, so Black Moon Lilith in Virgo, I'll just kind of use an example. A famous one is actually Kourtney Kardashian, which I think is really interesting because she has Poosh, which is her wellness brand. It's very Virgo. And then she just came out with like a supplement line and she has Black Moon Lilith in Virgo. And I just think it's really interesting that it's manifesting in that way. Whereas another famous Black Moon Lilith in Virgo, Paris Jackson, I know it was like reported with dealing with a lot of feelings of like worthiness and just eating and dietary challenges. Not to get too far into it to trigger anyone, but basically it can manifest in a couple different ways. But it has to do with a lot of sixth house issues like your health, your routine, and your work.
Now it gets fun. Black Moon Lilith in the seventh house. Well, it
Black Moon Lilith in the seventh. So I have a good example. I've been doing a lot of research on Princess Diana. So she had Black Moon Lilith in Cancer in her seventh house. And she's a Cancer sun as well. And she had Mercury retrograde. So we all know what happened with the family and the lineage and the traditions and everything that's going on there. So there's no need to explain that one further. But to explain the placement, the seventh house represents deep relationships, marriage, agreements, contracts. And this is like, this is all about relationships. So Black Moon Lilith themes can come up, and I've seen in clients when I see Black Moon Lilith in the seventh, there can be some difficulty with the power in relationships, the power dynamic. So I would say that's like a good way to sum that up.
And Black Moon Lilith in the eighth.
So this is this is an occult placement here. So we've got the eighth house, and this is actually an extremely intense place to have Black Moon Lilith. And I've seen it manifest in different ways. I will say trigger warning, but I'm still not going to get too deep into it. But there can be some sexual trauma that happens with Black Moon Lilith in the 8th. There can just be maybe the use of sex to gain power, and using it as like a transmutation act. These are people who can have deep interest in the occult, or things like witchcraft or tarot, magic. And there's a lot of alchemy with this placement. So if you go through a lot of difficult situations in your life, especially around sexual themes, there's a lot of internal transformation that has to take place to heal from those things. So that's a challenging Black Moon Lilith placement as well. I would say the 4th and the 8th and the 12th, of course, are the most difficult.
Black Moon Lilith in the 9th.
So this is someone who has radical beliefs and really wants to change the status quo of the world. And a famous Black Moon Lilith. Okay, so I'm going to give famous Black Moon Lilith in Sagittarius because I can't think of someone with the house right now. But Britney Spears is the famous Black Moon Lilith in Sagittarius, and the psychoanalyst Carl Jung is one as well. So you can see the couple of ways that it manifests. Whereas the 9th house, it's not Sagittarius, of course, but it has to do with expansion, freedom, education, higher level knowledge. And so Carl Jung radicalized a lot of these psychoanalyst practices and beliefs in the 20th century. And then Britney Spears, we obviously know she had a public battle over freedom and her right to be a sovereign person away from her father. So that's a way that the 9th house can show up. And this also can be somebody who just takes a different approach to educating themselves, maybe not wanting to get a formalized education, going into different modalities of spirituality could also be a way that manifests.
And let's come back to the 10th, because of course.
Yes, it's you. Yes. So this is career, and the mother or the father, however you interpret it. This is how this is like when you get to the pinnacle. This is the midheaven area as well. Like when you get to the pinnacle of your career, this is what you want to be or aspire to be, or what you're natural at in this lifetime. And it actually tends to square, well, it does. It squares your rising. So sometimes, like for Cancer risings, it's us. Being a leader and being in the spotlight sometimes is like an extra step for us. But with the 10th house, this is like the extra step that you're taking in this lifetime to really lend something to the collective. So it's your life path.
Yay. And the 11th.
So you can attract a lot of Black Moon Lilith-esque type of people in your life. I think also this can be someone who's kind of like a black sheep, and maybe doesn't fit in with the crowd, or the people that they surround themselves with are original, unique. They could also be ostracized by society or not fit in. And these are people who, think of a Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon Lilith in Aquarius, a famous one, it's kind of 11th, is, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on her name right now. Oh, Willow Smith. This is a famous Black Moon Lilith in Aquarius. So this is when we take a look at her as a icon, she's just very in her own skin and being herself. And she's gone through a lot to get to that place. And so Black Moon Lilith in Aquarius are people who are different and unique. But that difference actually is helping change the world and helping shift the collective.
And finally, the 12th.
So this is another challenging place for Black Moon Lilith to be. The 12th house, it can be, challenging. It's a place of seclusion. This is also an intuitive house, but Black Moon Lilith here means that this could be just difficult memories or nightmares or dreams that just can, like anxiety, just things that are difficult in life that just kind of keep coming back. Addiction is here as well. And actually there's like a few actually, but I'll name one. A famous Black Moon Lilith in Pisces is someone like Amy Winehouse. And we can see with the struggles that she went through with addiction, but this is somebody who kind of overdoes it a little bit with that Piscean 12th house energy, or it can also be someone who maybe helps others if they learn from those experiences and they can help heal others, and do acts of service. Another famous one is someone like Russell Brand, for instance, who transformed that and changed it and is trying to do things to help the collective in his own way. So this is definitely one of service when it's transmuted.
That's so powerful. Adama, you are so powerful. I just think
Thanks,
that you
Nadiya.
are this brilliant, beautiful, incredible astrologer inside and out. I love celebrating you, and I love that you're back at Synchronicity University as well. So once again, you guys, you can obviously see why Adama is the perfect person to be teaching the definitive workshop on Black Moon Lilith, and she is coming to the November speaker series of Synchronicity University, where you just a few days left. You've got very little time left to choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class, an unheard of rate to get a workshop on Lilith and more. I hope that you will join us for the November 2022 speaker series at synchronicityuniversity.com. Adama, thank you again. I adore you.
Thank you. I adore you too, Nadiya. Thanks so much for having me on.
And thank you everybody out there for watching. And until we connect again, take care. Bye.